Prologue. Deborah D., or Dee Dee as her fans knew her, scraped her nails along the cold, wet road by her side. She forced her swollen eyes to open, and the rush of light exploded as searing pain behind her sockets. Reaching up, she ran her hand gently across her battered face. Her fingernail caught on a flap of skin torn away from her cheek. She moaned in muted agony. Beneath her crumpled, prostrate body, her legs were spread out, one folded under the other. Her designer pajama bottoms were torn and blood-splattered, and her bare feet red raw from fleeing across rough ground. Forcing her head up, she wiped at the blood again and peered into the blurry view ahead. A narrow country road, stretching towards a small humpback bridge. Pushing her hands against the road, she attempted to clamber to her feet, but her head was spinning like an out-of-control waltzer, and she flopped back down. She tried again, heaving her legs upwards until she was on her knees. Focusing on the white line in the center of the road stretching out ahead of her, she clambered to her feet and staggered forward, following the line towards the bridge. With each faltering step, the explosions in her head intensified. She groaned again, almost losing her balance as she cleared more blood-soaked tears from her view. When she reached the bridge, she could see the lights of Kingsburn village in the near distance. If she could reach the first house, she could get help. Stumbling on, she heard footsteps following behind. She turned, but before she could cry out, a hard thump knocked her sideways onto the low bridge wall. She tried to escape, but arms were on her, lifting her up and over, and she tumbled backwards into the shallow stream below. Still conscious, she kicked out, and scrambling back through the freezing water, she dragged herself under the arch. Pushing up against a cold, wet wall, she held her breath and listened. Above her, she could hear the clump, clump, clump of feet pounding over the bridge. The stream gurgled as it cascaded over her battered limbs. She listened again. Nothing. Was he gone? A click by her ear made her turn. Her attacker was on top of her. "No!" she cried out, but the weight drove her back against the wall, a sudden pressure on her left side. The hooded figure leaned in and hissed, "Shh," in her ear, and a corpse-cold blade punctured her skin and slid slowly between her ribs, slicing through flesh and artery until it found its prize. And in one final, fatal twist, the blade plunged through the center of Dee Dee's heart, and before she could take a final, desperate, agonizing gasp, she was gone.